Okay, shall
Yeah,
we start,
yes, yes.
Dr. Saurabh?
Okay, good morning, sir. Once again, I welcome to Professor Vikas Mohanty in the next session is on process integrations, pinch technology. Okay, so I just welcome to Mohanty, sir. Sir, please continue your session.
Uh, Hey, good
Sir, you
morning
can
to all.
just start your lecture, sir.
Good morning to all of the participants. We'll today discuss about Finch technology, which is a very famous technology for energy conservation and energy integration. Now we'll start the concept of process integration from nature, and we'll try to find out whether in nature this concept exists or not. So you just saw the video of the birds flying and flying in a V shape. So let us start analyzing it, why they are flying in a V shape and what is the benefit of it. Now, the question is why the birds fly in this fashion and why the bird flock together. Why the birds fly in V section? There are a number of social factors for this: reproduction, protection from predators, communication, navigation, etc. But for time being, we are not interested in all these factors, but we will try to find out what is the technicality behind this, what is the technical factor. But let us look only at aerodynamic factors for the time being. One theory is that there is an aerodynamic advantage to flying behind and to the side of another bird to take advantage of its wing tip vortices. Birds fly in a V to help conserve their energy during migration. Because you all people know that the birds can fly thousands of kilometers for migration. And obviously, they have to search out a technique in which they will spend minimum energy during flying. With the exception of the individual leading the group, each bird trailing behind the other benefits from a reduction in wind resistance. This formation reduces the drag force that each bird experiences compared to if it were flying alone. This you can also face if somebody is riding a motorcycle and you are a premium seater, then the guy who will be driving the motorcycle will face the maximum resistance. And the guy who will be sitting behind will not face that maximum resistance. So what the birds do, the bird which is leading the group, after some time he will come to a back position, and from the back position one will go to the leading position. This way they change their position while migration. Now if this is true, then if you find out the energy required for flying a certain distance per bird decreases. Now let us see whether the fishes also use the same technique to reduce their energy. This is the case with fish as well. Why fish swim in schools? They do this mainly because of two simple facts of nature. One, big fish eat little fish, and two, there is safety in numbers. But we are not interested in these two factors. We'll see the technical factors behind this. The side of the shape and often the flashing of light reflected off thousands of fish can confuse predators, but being in a school also means that predator cannot generally eat the lot, and so significant numbers survive. So the nature has given them intelligence how to save themselves. There is a lot of sound coming to me.
Actually, sir,
Okay, sir. Yeah, just mute your microphone.
So please correct your microphone, disturbing my thought process. There are other reasons for fish to swim in schools. One reason is that as they swim and their tails sweep from side to side, they set up tiny whirlpools or vortices in the water, which effectively reduces the friction for each of a fish neighbor. Less friction means less effort and energy is required to swim. So here we also see that birds and fishes also using some technique to reduce their energy when they are working in a group. So what we saw in the first two slides, that integration helps conserve energy. Maybe that after a few years you will find that many aeroplanes are moving close to each other to reduce the energy. This is not here because there are safety reasons for this, but maybe that when our control systems will be very perfected, then they may fly like this to reduce the energy consumed by the planes. Now let us see another example. Tomatoes and potatoes grow on the same plant. Now potatoes grow underneath the soil and tomatoes grow in the upper part of it. But if I join these two, then I will have a plant which will give me fruit at the top and at the bottom as well. So my harvest will double. So is it possible? The answer is yes. So we saw here that a plant which gives potato beneath the earth and tomato at the top. So if I do like this, then my production will be double. So integrating a tomato plant with a potato plant is going to benefit me. It is going to increase my product. The community cooking in Punjab, which is called Sanja Chulha. If you see Sanja Chulha, the community kitchen, this has been created for many reasons. Here, the energy conservation is there. That means energy used to cook a single chapati for a group of people will be far less if somebody alone is cooking a chapati. So, energy consumption is less when we are cooking in a group. If energy consumption is less, then wood consumption will be less. And if wood consumption will be less, I'll be saving trees. Plus, when many people will gather together, they will talk to each other. Each other will know their problems. A solution will come out in discussion. Plus, their stress level will decrease. So, the Sanja Chula is not only giving or decreasing the energy production of chapati, but it is also solving some social problems. That means I am in one go, I am solving so many problems. Here also we saw that if you are integrating each other, then we are saving a lot of energy, plus we are saving or we are solving a lot of social problem also. This you see Santra Devi and members of this Sanja gas group of Jogika Bas village, Rajasthan, getting a gas connection was a luxury Santa could not afford. Now she gets a monthly income too from the community kitchen, as the other women pay her a fixed amount for using the gas connection. Now see how they are integrating the essence and reducing the energy consumption for chapati, plus she is also earning something. So what we learn that a lot of integration nature does, and to solve many problems. Let us see some other. Symbiotic relationship. You will find that there are symbiotic relationships in animals also. These are also the symbiotic relationships. This is the elephant, and on the elephant you see some birds. They are eating the parasites which are developing on the body of the elephant. Similarly here, the growth supports the fishes and fishes support the growth. Here also elephant and a bird. So in the nature, we also see the symbiotic relationships. That means when they combine with each other, they're benefiting each other. So when we are integrating, then we are in profit. Here also, symbiotic relationship. Ants provide protection from predators in harsh winter, and the small aphids provide nutrition to this ant. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Here also you see mongoose are eating the parasites on the body, and this is also a symbiotic relationship. So after seeing so many symbiotic relationships, we ask a question. So this is a birth of a new concept which tells together we all win. Now the question is, do we have a technology which mimics this concept? Now suppose this thinking process is there in the nature, we saw in many places of the nature. Can I apply this thinking process to a plant and get benefit out of this thinking process? So answer is yes. We have a technology which mimics this concept, and this is process integration. And in other words, we call it pinch technology. When I say process integration, this is a thought process, and this thought process is implemented by pinch technology. The thought process can be implemented by many ways, but pinch technology is a way to implement the process integration thought process. Integration is the key to better design and operation. So this is our keyword, and we'll see that how the integration helps a designer and an operation. Now, the Albert Einstein, who was from 1879 to 1955, he has written that if mankind is to survive, we shall require a substantially new manner of thinking. That means we have to develop new thinking, and our thinking process should grow. Because the problems which we are facing now cannot be solved by the thinking process which we inherit now. Why? Because we are not in a position to solve them. That's why they are problems. If we solve them, the problems will not remain. So, what thinking process we have today, using that thinking process, I cannot solve the problems of today or tomorrow. So what I have to do? I have to improve, or I have to elevate my thinking process. Once I elevate my thinking process, I'll be able to solve the problems. Many of you, when face a problem, you go to your father, your peers, your seniors. Why? Because you think that their thinking process, their experience, due to their experience, their thinking process is elevated. Your thinking process is a little lower than them. So, they will be able to solve your problem. That means I have to continuously improve my thinking process if I have to survive. Now, if you see the energy consumed in different industries, this industry has petroleum refinery, chemicals, forest products, iron and steel, food and beverages, garment, fabricated materials, transportation of equipment, and so on and so forth. You see the green area of these towers are the energy losses, and white area is the useful energy. So every industry is going through this loss. Now the question is, can I eliminate this loss? Answer is no, you cannot eliminate. And if I cannot eliminate, what I should do? I should try to reduce it. In nature, nothing can be eliminated. It exists. But I can reduce this. I cannot eliminate poverty, but I can reduce this. So, I should develop technologies which will help me to reduce this green area. Now, what are the problems of process industry related to energy? Borrowed, often obsolete technology. If I go to purchase a technology, I will never get a new technology. Example, you purchase Rafale from the France. You think that the Rafale which he has given is the ultimate or contains the top technology which he has developed? Answer is no. He will give you a technology which is one stage lower than the technology which he has developed recently. And if you see the scenario of energy, you will find the industries are running, which was designed 50 years back when there was no concept of energy. 50 years back, 30 years back, 20 years back. So people have given us the obsolete technology. And borrowed technologies will be often obsolete technology. So if India wants to become a technology leader, then he has to develop his own technology. Energy consumption per unit production is much higher than the Western industries. How do you know that this technology is obsolete? Because if you compare the energy consumption per unit production here of anything, say iron, say a car, say a cycle, a motorcycle, then you will find that the energy consumption per unit production in India is much higher than in Western industries. Even in China, food production per unit area of India, food production of unit area of China. If you compare, you will find a large difference. And why that difference is that? Because the technology which we have taken is borrowed and often obsolete technology. Why all this happened? Because at that time or now even, no concept of process integration. We have not used this process integration into our design and operation. That's why our energy consumptions are far more. Energy management through process integration is a reality. The concept of process integration is a real concept. That means it can be implemented in industry. So it is a implementable concept. It is not a concept in the air. You can directly implement it in the industry, and industry can be benefited out of it. Problems of Indian industries can be solved by using techniques that minimize energy consumption with minimum investment. Process integration is one such technique. Now, when you go to the plant, join a plant, a lot of question is bombarded on you, because they think that this guy has come from IIT or NIT and he must have better knowledge than us, because we are 50 years old, 30 years old, our knowledge. So he must be coming with new knowledge, new technology. So he will be able to solve our problem. But the question which they will bombard on you is save water, because water has become very scarce commodity. So save water, don't use this much of water. Reduce waste. Minimize wastewater, because pollution people will catch hold of you if you don't minimize wastewater. Increase throughput, because everybody will want that his profit should increase, because profit works as a fertilizer to the plant. If you don't give this fertilizer, the plant will not grow. So increase throughput. Meet new product specifications, because the world has started demanding new product specifications. Example is petrol. The sulfur content of the petrol, say 10 years back, and now you see it has been drastically reduced, the sulfur content of the petrol. So the world will be demanding newer and newer products with better specification at a less cost. So this is a very challenging. Improve specification but decrease the cost. This looks impossible, but this can be only done if you will be inventing new and newer technologies. Reduce and plan capital. Improve utility system performance. So whatever utility systems are there, they will demand that its performance will be increased. introduce new plants, improve efficiency, reduce operating cost, and reduce emission. So in all these questions will be bombarded on a newcomer which will join a plant. And this pressure will come to you. So the bachelor degree holders, MTech holders, and PhD holders, they should be taught how to tackle all these questions. They should be given the knowledge, which using this knowledge, they can tackle all these questions and benefit the industry. Now, another buzzword is now is sustainable development. Reduce environmental impact, optimize production plan, improve utility system performance, minimize operating cost. Now, all aspect of debottlenecking, capital cost avoidance, now these things has to be applied to the industry. To find a sustainable development goal. Because if I use the sustainable development technologies, my demands will be solved. Like, if you are taking energy from, say, coal will not last long. But if you will take energy from the biomass is going to exist for all time to come. If you are using solar, at least 1 million years or few thousand years, I don't have to bother if I'm taking energy from the sun. So such technologies, which are sustainable technologies, I should invest a lot in these sustainable technologies and should develop it. You will be astonished to know that the solar cell efficiency which we are using, mainly imported from China, is only 13%. Whereas, if you see the solar energy research, the efficiency up to 40% has been increased. But the cost of those solar cells are very high. And hence, we are not able to use. So, all the technologies which are around a sustainable technology, or which provide sustainable technology, we should start working on this development of sustainable technologies. And government should also give pressure to develop sustainable technologies, which it is giving, I think, and should invest a lot of money on this. Now, all these things will be applied on energy, water, emission, and hydrogen. Now, we know energy, we know water, we know emission, because the pollution people will catch hold of you. Water pollution, if you do, again, those people will come. Energy cost is very high, so we have to reduce energy. But why hydrogen? Because the consumption of hydrogen in refineries have increased. If I want to produce a petrol or diesel having very low amount of sulfur, then I have to use hydrogen. So, as the specification of petrol and diesels are improving, the consumption of hydrogen is increasing day by day in the refinery industry. And that's why we started thinking of hydrogen conservation also. Now, process integration is a fairly new term that emerged in 80s and has been extensively used in 90s to describe certain system-oriented activities related primarily to process design. So, the thought process of process integration is related to process design. Now, when a new thought process comes, it takes time for implementation. So the thought process emerged in 80s, but it took 10 years to be implemented. So if you see the curve of implementation of a technology or its lifetime, then you find that there are in the few starting years, it doesn't take off. So this period is that, this is called incubation period of the technology. From 90s, it started taking off. If I want to define process integration is a systematic and general methods for designing integrated production systems. So it is a design method for designing integrated production system. Why integrated? Because we have seen that by integrating, we can save a lot of energy. Ranging from individual processes to total sites with special emphasis on efficient use of energy and reducing environmental effects. Now this total site concept is something different. Now suppose there are 4 steel plants operating in an area. I can apply my process integration technology, thought process, to single plants, and I can also apply my process integration principles to all the 4 stainless steel plants together. When I use this concept for a cluster of plants, it is called total site integration. So obviously, if I am applying process integration principles to an individual plant, I'll save energy. And if I'm applying it to a site, that means a cluster of plant, I will be saving more. This concept you can understand very easily if I give you an example. Suppose you have a family, your friend have a family. You have cooked more rice than required, but cooked less sabji than required. Your friend has cooked less rice than required and more sabji than required. So you can take sabji from your friend and you can give rice to your friend. So both will helping each other. They will integrate their food. If they integrate, they satisfy each other. So you do not have to go outside to purchase. Otherwise, what will happen? You will purchase some rice from the market and he will purchase some sabji from the market. Now, when I say market, this is a energy you are taking from outside.
Sudhanshu, don't share your screen.
What has happened?
Someone is sharing their screen. No, sir. Okay, sir. Just continue. Sir. Okay, sir. Okay. Sir. No, okay.
The process integration application areas. While heat recovery was the initial focus of process integration concept started with heat integration. But the scope is expanding. The scope has been expanded considerably during the late 80s and 90s to cover several aspects of process design. A key feature of this expansion has been the use of basic concept of heat recovery in other areas through the use of analogies. Now you'll find that the process integration is based on thermodynamics. Thermodynamics first law and second law is extensively used for process integration. And what I know, that thermodynamics can be applied to almost all disciplines of technology or engineering. If it is so, then process integration, which is based on thermodynamic principles, can be applied to all engineering disciplines. Like suppose you have a blood which is flowing to all parts of your body. If I inject a medicine into your blood, it will go to all parts of your body automatically. So if I compare thermodynamics principle as blood and process integration is a medicine, then if I inject process integration medicine into the thermodynamics, then it will take this medicine to all part of my body. That is all part of the engineering. So this process integration concept cuts through all engineering disciplines. If you see the analogies, I is equal to V by R, current is equal to voltage divided by resistance, it is applicable to all flows. I equal to V by R is applicable for charge flow. This is also applicable for chemical engineers also. My flow of material is equal to pressure difference divided by resistance in a pipeline flow. In a diffusion flow, it is concentration difference divided by the resistance. So the same rule is applicable to all type of flows. Similarly, as process integration was dependent on thermodynamic principles and energy conservation principles, it is applicable to almost all fields. And that we'll see. It is applicable to heat integration. It is applicable to distillation column targeting. It is applicable to cogeneration and total site targeting. It is applicable to batch process targeting. It is applicable to emission targeting. It is applicable to mass exchange network, that is water and wastewater management and recovery of valuable materials from wastewater. It is applicable to hydrogen management in refineries. And finally, it is applicable to financial management also. So you see the large number of different areas in which process integration works. Like a penicillin, it works on almost different elements. So all these areas are somewhere joined in a plane. And that's why the process integration has been used. And what is that common thing? The common thing is thermodynamics. Now, what are the techniques available for process integration? I have told you that pinch technology is not the only technology through which you can do process integration. There are several technologies through which you can do process integration. I can do using pinch technology. I have made it green because I am going to teach you the pinch technology approach. It can be done through MILP and MINLP approach. MILP and MINLP are optimization techniques. Mixed integer linear programming and mixed integer non-linear programming. So these are optimization techniques. So using optimization technique, you can also do process integration. By state space approach, you can do process integration. By genetic algorithm approach, you can do process integration because genetic algorithm is also a optimization algorithm. And it is called asymptotic optimization techniques because when it is reaching to the result, it becomes very slow. But the benefit of genetic algorithm is that it can very easily search the global optima, where other classical techniques of optimizations may be trapped in local optima. process graph theory, and then super targeting approach. So we'll see two approaches, pinch technology approach and super targeting approach. Basically, the super targeting approach is a subset of pinch technology approach. So we'll see both in this lecture. Now to define pinch technology, I will first tell you about the onion diagram. The onion diagram is a diagram through which I can express my chemical industry. The process design hierarchy can be represented by a onion diagram. So if you take an onion and slice it, then it will look like an onion diagram. So the core of my chemical industry is reactor. Because chemical engineer is asked to convert raw material to product. And when I am converting raw material to product, I am inflicting changes into the raw material. And this change is not a physical change, it is a chemical change. So in a reactor, when I am converting a raw material to product, so I am inflicting chemical changes to the raw material. So when I am converting into products, the desired product will be created, but with the desired product, there will be some undesired product will also come up. Just you must be remembering Sagar Manthan, the Amrit, and many good things came out from Sagar Manthan, but at the same time, the poison also came out with the Sagar Manthan. So, when I am creating a product, then some byproducts will also be created. I cannot stop it. Now, if I mix the product and byproduct, nobody is going to purchase that product. And the cost of that product will be very low. So, I have to remove my byproducts from products. And for that, I need mass transfer. So, the next layer.
You have got certain thoughts in your mind. Then what you should do? Okay, let me move.
So, next layer is called separator layer. That means I have to use separation processes. Now the separation process needs energy. Because when I am taking out two molecules which are sitting close to each other, I have to invest energy because they have an attraction. So if I want to break that attraction, I have to invest energy. And from where these separators will get energy? They will get energy from a heat exchanger network. That means heat energy layer will be there over this. And then I have to have the utilities because I get energy from utilities, steam, cold water, all these are utilities. So that is a utility layer. So I can visualize a chemical engineering industry in this 4 layers where reactor is at the peak center. And then all these layers are there. So my pinch technology applies to this boundary where heat and material balance boundary. Now main points of the onion diagrams are the design of a process starts with the reactor. When I design a chemical industry, it will start with the reactor in the core of the onion. Then one feeds, products, recycle concentration and flow rates are known. The separator, the second layer of onion can be designed. Once I know my feeds, I know my products, I know my recycle concentrations and flow rates, then the separators will be designed, that is second layer. Then the basic process, heat and material balance is now in place. Then the heat exchanger network, the third layer will be designed. And the remaining heating and cooling duties are handled by the utility system, the fourth layer. The process utility system may be a part of the centralized site-wide utility system or alone. That means what it is telling, that if you have 4 or 5 industries working, you can have a centralized utility system also. That means you are producing steam and cold water in one place and distributing to all industries. And if you do this, obviously the cost of utility will be far less than if every industry is maintaining its own utility system. Now, what is a pinch technology? Pinch technology is a tool for implementation of process integration. A process analysis starts with the heat and material balance for the process. Using pinch technology, it is possible to identify appropriate changes in the core process conditions that can have an impact on energy saving. That means onion layers 1 and 2. After the heat and material balance is established, targets for energy saving can be set prior to the design of the heat exchanger network. The beauty of this pinch technology is that without designing, it can tell you how much energy you can save, what will be the area of the heat exchanger network, how many heat exchangers will be there in the heat exchanger network. And the design is done to satisfy the target. So between design and pinch technology, there is a stage which is called target stage in pinch technology. Like this, if you are doing a business and somebody tells that if you do this business, you will get this much of profit, you will not believe him. Ye kaisa ho gaya? Without knowing the business, how can he tell that how much profit I will get? But this is true in pinch technology. We'll see why this is true. The pinch design method ensures that these targets are achieved during the network design. Now, let us come to some fundamentals. If I am purchasing a heat, suppose there is a marketplace, there are hundreds of people selling heat, and I am there in the market to purchase 1000 kilocalorie heat. Somebody is telling that 1000 kilocalorie at 50 degrees centigrade is available with me. The other is telling that same 1000 kilocalorie 100 degrees centigrade is available. When you ask prices for the same 1000 kilocalorie, the guy who is selling the 1000 kilocalorie at 100 degrees centigrade, he tells you a higher price than the guy who is selling the same 1000 kilocalorie at 50 degrees centigrade. Then you can argue, here you both are selling the same amount of energy. Why a 100 degree wala is taking more price, charging more price? So what we see here, that cost of the utility is increasing if the temperature is increasing. And this can be proved from the Carnot cycle efficiency. If a heat engine is working within a larger gap of temperature, its efficiency will be better. That means if a heat engine is working from 1000 degrees centigrade to 25 degrees centigrade, its efficiency will be more. If it is working from 100 to 25 degrees centigrade, its efficiency will be less. So when the temperature of the energy is increasing, it is in a position to do more work, and hence a energy with higher temperature is costly. Now, how you utilize this in your life? Suppose you want to take a bath, hot water bath. You should not increase the temperature of water to 90 degrees centigrade and then cold water to bring it to 50 degrees centigrade and then take bath. It tells if you are doing this, you are losing a lot of money. So if you want to take a bath, then you rise the temperature of the water up to 50 degrees centigrade and take bath. Because when you are purchasing energy at a higher temperature and diluting it to a lower temperature without taking any work from it, you are losing money. Similarly, the refrigeration, more I go down, more costly it is. That means if I am pumping 1000 kilowatt from minus 20 degrees centigrade to 25 degrees centigrade, I'll be investing more money. If I am pumping it minus 5 to 25 degrees, I'll be investing less money. So when the minus temperature goes, if I move in this direction, my refrigeration cost increases. And when I move in this direction, my cost of my utility increases. This we will see in the pinch. Pinch, that's why if pinch requires a lower temperature utility, you will use it lower temperature utility, it will not use the higher temperature utility. Now let us see a design. You are posed to a design. There are 3 hot streams which needs cooling and 3 cold streams which needs heating. Now this hot stream is working at 300 degrees centigrade. It needs to be cooled down to 200 degrees centigrade. All these 3 hot streams have got same specification. There are 3 cold streams with 50 degrees centigrade, needs to be heated up to 150 degrees centigrade. Now one way of handling it is that I'll cool down all my hot streams using cold water, cooling water. Like here I am giving cooling water and cooling it down and heating these cold streams with this steam. This will perfectly work. Now when I should do this design? I should do this design when my capital cost requirement is low. That means I have to produce a design with minimum capital cost. Now this design is appropriate when energy is cheap and capital is expensive. Because I am not using any concept of heat recovery in this design. And I am only using utility. This is one other extreme. What I am doing, I am heating the cold stream with hot streams, and while heating the hot streams are cooled down to 200 degrees centigrade and cold streams are heated up to 150 degrees centigrade. In this case, I don't need these coolers, nor I need cooling water. Similarly, I don't need these heaters, nor I need steam. So I save money on steam and cooling water and also area of these heaters and coolers. Now, this is one extreme design. Here I am not using any utility and I am interchanging heat from hot to cold. So it will give me minimum energy cost because my utilities are zero. Now this design is appropriate when energy is expensive. If energy is expensive, this design is appropriate. Heat recovery as much as possible in preference to utility usage. I have given preference to heat exchange, interchange, rather than utility. Now, what here I have done, I have used 9 heat exchangers. Here I have used only 6 heat exchangers. And if you see the delta T at which these heat exchangers are operating are lower, here delta T's are higher. So these heat exchangers will have higher area and higher number of heat exchangers. So my capital cost will be exorbitantly higher here. Though I was able to save my energy costs, but the capital cost will be higher. Now the question is, can I have a design which is in between? The answer is yes. Now this is a design which is in between. Here I am using only 3 heaters, 3 exchangers, whose total area is 133. Here I am using 6 heaters, whose total area is 204. Even if it is working under a high delta T minimum value, but its area is 204. And here it is working at a lower delta T minimum value, lower delta T Ln value, but its area is less. And this looks like a magic. Why this has happened? And number of heat exchangers also I am using less. I am using here 3 heat exchangers. I am using here 6 heat exchangers, and in the earlier 9 heat exchangers. Now this you cannot understand now why this has happened. Because my Q is equal to UA delta T clearly tells if my delta T will increase, my area will increase. But here the area is not increasing. These examples indicate that there are 2 basic thermodynamic effects influencing capital cost. One is the effect of driving force, and other is the effect of heat load. If my heat load will increase, my area will increase. And if my driving force will increase, my area will decrease. Now, when I see a Q is equal to UA delta T, I presume that Q remains constant when delta T is increasing or decreasing in this equation. If when I am decreasing or increasing delta T, if Q changes, then I cannot find out conclusion using this equation. Now, in this case, that has happened. When you are increasing delta T, the Q is increasing. When you are decreasing delta T, the Q is also decreasing. And that's why you have an area of 133 here. And area of 204 is here. It is evident that as we go to the tighter designs to reduce driving force, we need less utility and the overall heat load decreases. Capital cost then increases with reduced driving force, but decreases with reduced load. We rarely consider this point. In the design without process heat recovery handles twice as much heat as is necessary. As a result, capital costs are increased even though the driving force are large. This will be clear to us after I discuss the 10, 12 slides with you. Then I will have a slide in which I will show how when delta T is decreasing, how the Q is changing. Now it says very clearly, if the driving force is increasing, then capital cost is decreasing. If the heat load is increasing, the capital cost is increasing. Now, why this process integration is so important for us? Now, this is a traditional way of designing. Now, in a traditional way of design, I am also improving my designs. I am reached to this place, new design. But when I use the process integration technique, I get a sudden jump. So I am very close to the minimum energy design. So this jump has been achieved by using process integration technique, and that's why it has become so famous. Process integration, a part of process intensification, is a fairly new term. So I'm not going to go deep into this. These are the definition of PI I had already given you. Now, if you see the evolution of process design, then the first generation designs started experiments in chemistry laboratory and then tested in pilot plants before plants construction. This was the first generation. Second generation used concept of unit operation. Unit operations acted as building blocks for the engineers in the design process. So second generation. Third generation used the integration between units. So this is the third generation. And fourth generation, consideration of more than one process phenomena, reaction, heat transfer, mass transfer, to take place within the same piece of equipment. Like if there is a heat exchanger, it can exchange heat, but the fuse of the heat exchanger can work as a PFR. And if I put a twisted tape inside the tube, it can work as a mixer. So the same heat exchanger working as a reactor, working as a mixer, and working as a heat transfer equipment. So I am saving the cost of two more equipment in one equipment. When such thinking process are used in the design, it is called fourth generation design. And this fourth generation design will be based on process intensification. The third design is process integration. Now for process integration, there are four quadrants. One, interactive, this is automatic, qualitative, and quantitative. So my pinch technology falls in this quadrant. This is heuristic rule. This is knowledge-based system design. This is optimization-based system design. And this is thermodynamic-based design where the pinch follows, because it gives you an interactive. Interactive means you can talk to the plant operators and take their opinion in the design. And that's why it is called interactive design. And it gives you quantitative results. Now, if you see the application area of pinch technologies, it works on energy integration, hydrogen management in refinery, mass integration, pollution prevention, debottlenecking of critical areas of the process industry, financial management, supply chain management, and co-production. So for energy integration, it works on heat exchanger network, cogeneration and total site targeting, distillation column targeting, batch process targeting and optimization, low temperature processes. For mass and pollution, it works on carbon constrained energy sector planning, water and wastewater management, recovery of valuable materials, and emission targeting. So you see that if you learn this concept, many area of chemical engineering is automatically covered. This I had already explained you, the current status. Now it shows that the same concept can be used for the heat exchanger network, same concept can be used for mass exchanger network. Here the temperature will be substituted by the composition, heat capacity flow rate will be substituted by mass flow rate, and so on and so forth. Now, if you see the saving, if you apply pinch technology to all refineries, you can saving up 10 to 40% can be done. Iron steel 11 to 50%, chemicals 15 to 40%, and so on and so forth. And these percentages are very high, because if you can save 1% of energy in a plant, you save your whole life salary. Similarly, water saving can be also done. You say a large quantity of water can be saved using the same technology. Now here I want to say that the whole industry works between two levels of temperature. This is the temperature of the steam, that is utility, and this is the temperature of the cold water. And heat is flowing from here to here, and in between the whole plant is there. There are two types of problems addressed: creating new designs and retrofit. When I am applying my design to a already developed plants, then I call it a retrofit. Now these are the steps through which the pinch design is applied. Problem, I decide a problem, then I convert it into data, then I convert it into transpose to stream problems, then I create composite curves, then I create targets, then I design it using pinch design rules, then I transpose back to the PFD. So I start with a PFD, and then I create a new PFD. And if this new PFD is implemented, I get a lot of energy saving. Now, how the targets are used? Target 0 base case optimizations, no new piping or equipment. Target 1 minimum investment. When you apply this into the industry, if you say that if you spend 10 crores, I will give you this saving, nobody will agree with you. You say that you don't give me any money, I will save a little bit of your energy, and show it to them. Once you show this, then they will agree with you. Then go for target. Say you give me 10 lakhs, I will save 20 lakhs. They will give you 10 lakhs. Then you say that you give me 30 lakhs, I will save you 1 crore. Then they will give you. So target by target, we have to go for this. And in the targets, which is the last target, we go for process modification. And in target 2, we go for new equipments. And target 1, we go for only new pipings and some measure equipment. Now it shows, this is the old PFD, process flow diagram. And this used to require minimum heating 1722 and minimum cooling 654. And number of units used was 6 heat exchangers. When I apply pinch technologies to this, I modify this PFD. Then my heating reduced to 1068 from 1722. There was no cooling was required. I off the cooling, that means no cooling tower is required, and number of units reduced to 4. So there are only 4 heat exchangers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So by using pinch technology, I was able to give a new PFD, and if this new PFD is implemented, I am doing a lot of saving. Why this has happened? Because it works on classical thermodynamics. Now, what are the basic elements of pinch? Grid diagram, composite curve, problem table algorithm, and grand composite curve. These are the 4 basic elements of pinch, and we will see it one by one. Now, this is a process, schematic diagram of a process, and I want to use pinch technology on this. So now in the grid diagram, basically, the grid is used to represent the heat exchanger network more conveniently. The important features of grid representations are hot streams are drawn at the top running left to right, cold streams from right to left, and heat exchanger is given in between them, and heaters are given by H and coolers by C, and temperatures can be put on the grid. So if I see a grid, it will be very clear. Now this is a grid diagram. From left to right, I am drawing the hot streams. This cold streams from right to left. Then I can put a heat exchanger here. A gola here, a gola, and then connect. So it says that the heat exchanger is exchanging heat from H1 to C3. Then this is a heater and this is a cooler. And then the second heat exchanger, which is exchanging heat from H2 to C4. And this is what I write here is the capacity of this heat exchanger. That is, it is exchanging 27 units of heat. And after exchanging it, the stream temperature is 92 here. The stream temperature is here 177, and it's 31.5 units of heat it is exchanging. This is exchanging 3 units of heat. It is exchanging 0.5 units of heat. Now, this is the way how the grid diagram is composite curve. Now, based on this composite curve theory, the whole integration works. Now, what it tells that I have to integrate all the heat available in the industry, and I have to integrate all the coals available into the industry. Then only I will be able to know then how much heat can be given from hot stream to the cold streams, and how much heat I have to purchase as utility from the outside. But integrating is not only adding. Adding will not integrate, because thermodynamics says that heat can be only passed from a higher temperature to lower temperature, not from lower temperature to higher temperature. For example, suppose I have 100 kilocalorie heat available at 100 degrees centigrade, and I have a cooling stream which needs to be heated from 150 degrees centigrade to 300 degrees centigrade. And it also takes 100 kilocalorie. So a 100-degree hot streams cannot give heat to the cold stream, though it needs 100 kilocalorie. So when I am integrating the hot streams and cold streams, then amount is important, but with it, the temperature is also important. So my integration needs to be done in a TH diagram. If I am integrating it in the TH diagram, then I am integrating it properly. Now I am extracting data because Pinch wants to extract data as hot streams and cold streams. The blue are basically, this blue is hot and green is cold stream. So cold hot. Now you see that it will start extracting data automatically. This Cp is MCP, mass into specific heat, mass flow rate into specific heat. So from this PFD, I have extracted all the cold available. There are two cold streams available here. Cold streams are those streams which needs heating, and hot streams are those streams which needs cooling. So this stream is from 20 to 180 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is 20 to 180 degrees centigrade. Its delta H is 32 megawatt, and its Cp, which is mass flow rate into specific heat, is 0.2. Similarly, I have written all these things. This negative shows that it is a hot stream, and this positive shows it is a cold stream. Now it's a hot stream, it is going from T1 to T2. So if I want to find out what is my enthalpy here, and if I take reference temperature to 0, my H1 will be MCP T1 minus 0. Similarly, H2 will be MCP T2 minus 0. Now if this is MCP is CP, so I can write down H1 minus H2 equal to CP T1 minus T2. Now this appears like a equation, y is equal to mx. So I can write down delta H is equal to Cp T1 minus T2, or I can write down T1 minus T2 is equal to 1 by Cp into delta H. So if delta H is a axis and temperature is a axis, I can plot this stream in a TH diagram. So if you take a TH diagram, this is delta H, and this is between T1 and T2. So this is a stream which is represented by a TH diagram. And when I am representing this, I am keeping the temperature levels of the system intact as well as delta H. This is important. Now, if I can draw one stream in a TH diagram, I can draw n number of streams in this TH diagram. Now we have to find out some integration rules. Now, can I shift this stream horizontally? When I am shifting this stream horizontally, I am not changing the temperature levels. Neither I am changing the delta H, which is key here, or nor I am changing this flow, and hence horizontal shifting is permitted. But I cannot shift it vertically. If I am vertically shifting it, my temperature levels are changing, which is not allowed in second law of thermodynamics. I cannot change. If there is a stream available at 100 degrees centigrade, I cannot make it that this stream is available at 150 degrees centigrade. If I start doing this, there will be a lot of problem will be created in transfer. So, vertical shifting is not permitted. Now we'll go for a hot composite curve. That means I am adding up all the hot streams of the industry. So here we have two streams, two hot streams. We'll join them together to form a hot composite curve. So what I'll do, I'll shift it, which is permissible, because the integration can take place between these temperature levels, 80 to 20, 200. In 80 to 200 degree, both hot streams are available, and that's why I can integrate. And from 40 to 80, the only hot stream number 1 is available, and from 200 to 250, only hot stream number 1 is available. So as here two streams are available, I can integrate them. What I'll do, I'll join them together and form an integrated stream, which this will be Q1 plus Q2, and it remains same in temperature level 200 to 80. And as its mass flow rate is changing artificially, it's why the slope has changed. And then I'll take this to this, which is permissible. So this gives me a composite hot curve. Similarly, I can go for a composite cold curve. So this is my composite hot curve. I can go for a composite cold curve. So this is a composite cold curve. Now, once I have created composite hot curves and composite cold curves, I can calculate what exactly how much heat can be transferred from hot stream to cold streams. And you should remember that this composite curve is not a single stream. It is a fictitious curve, and it is composed of many streams. This should be kept in mind. So this is my hot, this is my cold. So it comes, I am maintaining the temperature levels. This is a cold stream, it goes there up. It is also maintaining the temperature levels. And I am keeping these two composite streams at delta T minimum apart. That means the closest distance between the composite hot and composite cold is 10 degrees centigrade. You can have 15 degrees centigrade, you can have 20 degrees centigrade, nobody stops you. Now, if it is 10 degrees centigrade, then this much heat can be extended from hot to cold. So if I put a perpendicular here in the h-axis, put a perpendicular in the h-axis, this amount of heat can be transferred. And this stream, cold streams, need to be heated up by using a steam, because no hot stream is available to heat it up. Similarly, this hot stream needs to be cooled by cold water, which is a utility. So it says that if delta T minimum is 10 degrees centigrade, then I need 7.5 units of steam to heat it from this temperature to this temperature, and I need 10 units of cooling water to cool it from this temperature to this temperature. Now, every heat exchanger which has got two delta T's. Now then, what is that delta T minimum? Delta T minimum is the minimum temperature out of all these delta T's. Now composite curve effect. What happens if I change this delta T? Now it was 10 degree. I changed it because I can shift it horizontally. Now it becomes, when it was 10 degree, heat recovery was 15.5, QC minimum was 10, QH minimum was 7.5, and total was 69. Now I change this to say 20 degree. If I change this to 20 degree, this QC minimum now becomes 14, QH minimum becomes 11.5, and this becomes Q recovery becomes 14.7, and add this together, this becomes 73. That means if I am increasing delta T, my Q is also increasing. Take a third, go to 30. Now if I am going to 30, then this is 77. So when I am increasing delta T, my Q is also increasing. And that's why my area will increase. One effect is that when I am increasing delta T, my area will decrease. But as Q is increasing with delta T, my area will increase. And that's why in that example, when I am using utilities, total utility, my area was 200 something, and when I was not using any utilities, it was 133. Now we take an example. The pinch technology principles applied on various projects in Union Carbide. One such project in figure 1, next slide, consists of a reactor, a flash system, and a complex refining system. The process is already highly integrated, with the various streams being heat exchanged to reduce the overall energy requirement. It was a fairly good design, but when we apply pinch technology, application of pinch technology in this project resulted a minimum energy target of 107 million BTU per hour, that is 31 megawatt for the hot utility, which is steam. The original process consumed 133 million, which is 39. So when this was applied to this system, then the pinch technology found that the hot utility should be 31 megawatt, whereas the industry was using 39 megawatt. So there was a scope of saving 8 megawatt, which comes to 20% of the original demand. Now, why this has happened? I have to investigate. Two major process-to-process heat transfer across the pinch was doing. The design has a fault, plus several other relatively small pinch violations. One instance of utility heating below the pinch, and one instance of utility cooling above the pinch. These are the faults which was done in the conservative designs, and that's why it was demanding 8 megawatt more. Now, when you want to improve this, save this, you need 6 new heat exchangers. Now the company will tell you, I will not give 6 new heat exchangers, it will cost me a lot. Kuch karo. Then this is process was prior to retrofit. At this stage, one should look for process modification. So decrease the pressure of the column number 2 by 5 psi. Decrease the pressure of column number 5 by 10 psi. Now these effect of 2 modifications result in an energy target of the process to modify was 92 BTU 27 megawatt. So when I change these 2 columns working, then I save another 11% saving, but it was needing 6 new heat exchangers. So what I did, I decreased this 6 number of heat exchangers, 2 number of heat exchangers, but I have to sacrifice 1.3 megawatt. So the flow sheet of the process finally recommended is shown in figure 2. Process modification and 2 new heat exchangers combined give you 28% energy saving at 6 months payback. So this was the new PFY process where 2 new heat exchangers are put here, and it gave you a saving of more than 20%. So this is the power of pinch technology. Using this, you can save a lot. So I stop here. Now I'll invite questions because only 5 minutes are left. Hello? So I have completed my presentation. Hello?
Hello.
I have completed my presentation, and the candidates can ask me questions.
Sir, is it possible to use the pinch analysis for the unknown temperature values?
Unknown what? I couldn't get you.
Unknown temperature values of the process. That means if we are taking the evaporator system, multi-effect evaporator system, at each effect we don't know the actual temperature value. So is it possible to apply in case of that?
No, you cannot apply unless otherwise you know the temperatures. What you can do, that is called base case analysis. The base case is known to you, and base case temperatures are known to you. So you can apply pinch technology to the base case and then do modifications into the base case to save more energy. But unknown temperatures can be allowed because by doing simulations you can fix up the temperature, and then you can apply the pinch technology. Unknown temperature means nothing is available. Neither delta H is available, nor T is available. So we cannot apply.
Thank you, sir.
So any more questions, please?
Sir, if I want to design new system, new plant, so in this case we can apply pinch technology or not?
100%. Because I have in one slide I have shown you there are 2 types of things in pinch. What is called design, one is called retrofit. When you are using pinch technology in the design, your savings will be far more than if you are using it in retrofit. Because in retrofit we have to do a compromise. Like in the last slide I have shown you that they were needing 6 heat exchangers to get the maximum benefit. But the company told that I will not invest in 6 heat exchangers. We bring down it to 2. When we bring down it to 2, we have to sacrifice 1.3 megawatt of energy. And due to this sacrifice, my efficiency will not be that high. So when you are applying pinch technology for a new design, the benefits are maximum.
Okay, sir.
But
Yes, any questions?
Before designing, you have to do the mass and energy balance.
Yeah.
Once you have a mass and energy balance of the industry, you can then apply the pinch technology.
Yes, any question from participant side? Does anyone have any query? You can ask. Okay. Sir, very thank you, sir, for delivering this. It's a very informative lecture. So on the first lecture is your process modeling, simulation, control, and optimization. Now today's lecture is process integration using a pinch technology. Definitely, I am very sure lecture is helpful to all the participants and their research as well as in their the others designing purpose. Okay.
You can go for
So once
consultancy.
again, I am very thankful to Professor.
You can directly
Yes.
apply this to the plant, nearby plant, and you can save a lot of energy. You can do consulting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. We can save the energy consumption in existing plant. Yeah.
Now,
So once again, I'm very thankful to Professor Vikas Mohanty sir for sparing your precious time to all of us. I'm very thankful to accepting our invitation and delivering this two very informative knowledge about the process modeling and process integration. Yes, sir. Very thankful for you.
okay, thank you for.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So I
Thanks a lot,
leave
sir.
the now.
Yes, anyone? Yes.
Just I am saying thank you very much, sir, for your kind session.
Sir, okay. So participant next lecture is in afternoon,
By Dr.
3 to
Gaurav
5,
By
3
Dr.
to 5 p.m.
Yes, by Dr. Gaurav Manik. He will deliver the lecture on the modeling simulation control optimization of multi-effective operator, a case study of pulp and paper mill.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I request to all the participants kindly join the next session at 3 o'clock.
And try to join the session before 3 o'clock so that
At least 5 minutes before you must be joined. 5 to 10 minutes before you should join.
because the always the pinging of just such type of message will distract the the audience as well as the speakers also. So try to join before 5 minutes. So see you guys.
Thank you.